Vic Nelson is one of the most decorated runners in UK history. Nelson burst onto the scene as a freshman, claiming the outdoor 3-mile crown, a title he would go on to win 4 straight years. Overall, Nelson won 7 SEC individual championships, including at least 1 each in cross-country, indoor track, and outdoor track. He was also a frontrunner for the Wildcats' SEC Championship cross-country team in 1970. Nelson was named 1971 UK Athlete of the Year by the K Association. He won an NCAA postgraduate scholarship. Vic Nelson is currently a professor and assistant head of the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at Auburn University. He has been a track meet official at Auburn since 1979.
Thank you so much, and I had promised that this would not be one of my 50-minute lectures. I'm truly blessed and honored to be here and to have represented the University of Kentucky, both in athletics and as an alumnus, especially at this university that has produced so many great and outstanding student athletes, such as my fellow inductees tonight. And I'd certainly like to take a few minutes here just to thank the university and talk about what this has all meant to me over the years. Let me begin with week number 1 on campus. So at the end of my first week after Mass at the Catholic Newman Center, I met another new freshman, Margaret Clark from Lexington, Kentucky. And 4 years later, we convinced her to run the wind gauge at the University of Kentucky relays. And she didn't realize she was holding the ring in the bag. And God willing, we'll be celebrating 48 years in December. And Margaret, you are truly my inspiration and my soulmate, and I love you dearly. With her we're blessed to have 2 wonderful children. My daughter Meredith, who has 2 degrees from UK herself, and I worked in this athletic department for 11 years. I've been excited to be here tonight to be Meredith's father. And with her is her husband, Jonathan Watson, works for UK Med Center. Jonathan and Meredith together are part of the Lexington theater community. And with them are our grandsons, Owen and Liam Watson. Guys, we're proud of you. We're honored to have at our table Hall of Fame coach Press Whalen and his wife Phyllis. Coach, I can't begin to thank you enough for the opportunity you gave me to come here and be part of this great university. Coach Whalen went out on a real limb to bring me in here, considering my athletic background. Give you an idea, growing up in Ashtabula, Ohio, choosing sides for pickup games, I think the phrase I heard most often was, "I guess we get Nelson." 2 years of being a 127-pound defensive end on the high school team. Yeah, I did get in 2 minutes in one game. I was the beneficiary of just some incredible series of fortunate events, beginning with the golf coach telling me I wasn't good enough to be on the team. Then I found out that the track team used 3 people at every event. They only had 2 milers. So if I could be a miler and half-miler, I would be a starter on a varsity team. Later that fall, the basketball coach decided to start a cross-country team to get in shape the basketball players who worked on the football team. And I fell in love with distance running. And then that followed with Ohio adding a 2-mile run to the previous mile run that they had in the outdoor meet, which was more to my suiting. 2 years later, I was not really running Division I caliber times, so I was prepared to walk on to school up in Ohio. And the last month of the season, one of the coaches from a rival school across town after our last city meet asked my coach if he could work with me. And he introduced me to real workouts. I thought he was trying to kill me out there. But times took a dramatic drop over the last 2 races, including a win at the All-Ohio meet in Ohio. My coach was sitting next to another coach in the stands at the time, whose athlete, Jerry Savati, had just signed with UK and would go on to be our star half-miler. He said, "Why don't I give Press a call and see if he has a spot down at UK?" This was Saturday. Press called me Monday afternoon. Apparently a scholarship had just opened up from someone who decided to go elsewhere. He sent the papers to me on Wednesday. On Friday, I was down here on a Greyhound bus signing up for classes. Press, I can't begin to thank you for that opportunity and giving me a chance, and especially to be part of that special program that Press Wayland had in those years. To give you an idea, the year before we arrived, Jim Green and myself and some others, we scored 0 points in the SEC Outdoor Championships. Fast forward 4 years, we won 10 of the 19 events in the SEC Championship out here at our track. And Press had 29 individual SEC champions along the way. Things were even more dramatic in cross country. Back in 1967, that was the last season that freshmen were ineligible to run on varsity events. So our freshman team, by the way, who beat the varsity in the dual meet, were not eligible. So PFRS pieced together a team that had a steeplechaser, 2 middle distance runners, a walk-on, and a 400-meter runner. Fast forward 3 years, we ended a string of 10 in a row by Tennessee, but to win the SEC championship out here, with Paul Baldwin and I crossing the line hand in hand to run first. We had Don O'Connell in the top 10, Mike Haywood in the top 12, and the meet was won for us by a middle distance runner, Don Weber, who produced an unexpected finish in the top 20. Is an incredible performance. We hung around watching the final score, and hearing that we won that meet was the most thrilling and gratifying event that I was part of at the University of Kentucky. It was a long road to get there. And when I say long road, I mean that literally. So we typically put in 100 plus miles in a week running. Probably none more memorable than our first trip to what was referred to for years then as the store. So starting at the UK Sports Center over here, we took off for a 5-mile warm-up run out through Lansdowne, out Armstrong Mill Road, stopped and stretched. And then we ran alternate half-mile intervals for the next 6 miles, running half-mile on, half-mile off, with Press driving along beside us, periodically standing up through the sunroof of his car while he was driving. So at the end of that, now do the math, we're 11 miles out in the country. We're thinking, how's he going to ferry us all back here in that car? He smiled, got in the car, took off, said, start running. To add insult to injury, on the way back, I got ahead of the guys, took a wrong turn in Lansdowne, and I think I probably ran about 2 extra miles. So by the time I got back to the sports center, everybody was back, which I wasn't surprised about. Next day, Press called a team meeting to talk about the phone call he got from a lady who talked about some UK runners hitchhiking on the way back in that event. But you know, we would run to the store and back probably a couple of times every fall after that. Press had the great insight to realize that as a distance person with no speed, I really needed to run more miles. And indeed, that worked for me. So I got up to 140, 150 miles a week senior year. Probably none more memorable than when I got the dumb idea that it would be a great idea to run from UK to Eastern Kentucky University in Richmond. So sure enough, Sunday morning I got up, took off down Tate's Creek Road, found out there's a river halfway between there and here, which had a rope-drawn ferry. The guy charged me $25 to take me across. I was carrying a $5 bill tucked in my watch band. I ended up carrying $4.75 in change the rest of the way into Richmond. And as I arrived in Richmond, I ran into the Eastern cross-country team out for their Sunday run. And they're all trying to be cordial. I'm just saying, how much farther is it to the place? But indeed, those were incredible times. And as a distance runner, we're not constrained to running in a gymnasium or a track or an arena. The world is our training facility, and Lexington, Kentucky is probably one of the most beautiful places in the country to run. I used to joke that out in the countryside, the only place in the world where thoroughbred horses can gather at the fence to watch people run by. But you know, beyond the track experience, which was certainly wonderful, was my educational experience in electrical engineering here at the University of Kentucky, which set me up for so many things that would follow. Starting with my time at the Naval Officer Candidate School, where my UK EE degree got me an interview with Admiral Hyman Rickover and a position then as an instructor at the Nuclear Power School. And I enjoyed the teaching so much, I said, let's go to graduate school and do that for a living. So in graduate school, I think I discovered that my UK foundation in electrical engineering made me as well prepared as anybody for advanced education. And over the years, I've had opportunity to visit many schools and conferences around the world. And I can assure you, looking back, UK undergraduate education was second to none. And indeed, UK engineering is well respected among the entire engineering community. So to conclude, I'd like to thank so many special people that affected my life. Certainly Coach Whalen and my other coaches, but then people like Mrs. Wallander, the math teacher in high school, who taught all 4 years of our college preparatory math, and for each of us seniors gave us an autographed book of math tables that she purchased herself. That's still on my shelf. The coach that worked with me from the rival school, the English teacher in high school who fussed at me about my poor writing and insisted that I do better. And I said probably the most stupid thing ever, which was, you know, I'm going to be an engineer. Writing's not going to be important. Guess what I've taught and critiqued in my students for years and years now over there. And indeed, I've talked to many students that I've had the privilege to work with over the years. And it was always interesting to hear from them about that special person who made a difference in their lives, whether it was in sports or music or whatever it might be. And you know, that includes not only coaches like Don Weber and Press Whalen, who touched so many lives in their careers, but people like Margaret, who 21 years in an elementary school shared her love of reading and books with so many little children. And Meredith is a stage manager in the theater, sharing her passion and knowledge for theater with so many young and old actors. And so many people like high school coaches, like Frank Watson, Jonathan's father, whose athletes for years and years will lovingly refer to him as Coach. And I know many of you in this room have been that special person to somebody or other. And on behalf of all those people whose lives you touched and myself, who's been affected by so many people, I would like to offer my sincerest thanks. And to you young people who may get discouraged when you hear someone not too happy that you're on their team, ignore them. If you're passionate about it, go out for it, go for it, work for it. And I guarantee that years later, you may not be in a Hall of Fame, but you'll look back fondly on those times and the memories that that'll create. And to the University of Kentucky, who made all this possible, you have my undying thanks and gratitude. And my Auburn students will say that even after 40 years there, I still proudly say in front of them, "Go Big Blue." Thank you so much.